Brad Pelletier, Chris Locatelli, Jim Formica, Zoning Enforcement Officer Jennifer Roy, and Ken Slater, Town Attorney. Okay, first item on the agenda is a public hearing for PZC 26-004, Summers Mountain Properties, LLC, application for modification of special use permit and settlement agreement conditions relative to food vendors and food trucks. Yeah, the public hearing's open. Go ahead.
What's that turn on?
Yeah, the green light will go on.
All right. Do I need to sign that too?
No, we know who you are.
So Mark Murdoch, representing Summers Mountain Properties and Worthington Vineyards. So the application we have is basically, we feel, is a correction or a omission or misunderstanding. Originally, we felt we have more than one. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
So we're basically having, we know we have one food truck allowed, but it's allowing a vendor such as a cookie vendor or a coffee truck, or not a truck, I'm sorry, but a coffee station was always our we understanding. So we found out that was not allowed in our permit. So what we did is submit this application. We worked out with our neighbor as an agreement with our lawsuits that any revision to our permit, our special use permit, is now we worked out with our neighbor ahead of time. So this has all been worked out and resolved, and I think it's a reasonable request that we allow to have. We agree to have one food truck, no generators, but also allowed to have like a coffee station or as Jason is here, a cookie vendor sell their wares next to the food truck on occasion. So that's the request, and we hope you support it.
Is there a number on the number of vendors outside of the food truck?
I think the application says total of 4.
Okay.
So 3 beyond the food truck.
Okay. Any other comments on the application 26004?
I can say something. Is that okay?
Just step up to the microphone, sign your name and your address so we can identify you later for the record. State for the record, sorry.
Jason Caetano. I resident here, lived here all my life, graduated Summers High School. I have 2 businesses here in town, the local Summers Dunkin', and my wife and I have a cottage business here too, the Isolicia Suites. So we've enjoyed being up there when we can with Mark. It's been a good partnership, and I really hope that this goes through. We think it's going to be a positive thing. I'm 100% on board for this. It's a beautiful place, and I think it would be great for the community to have more vendors on site.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Could you turn his mic up? We can't hear him.
Here's just to summarize, so you know, he was supporting the application, the adjustment to the special use permit. Any other?
I have to talk close to
Yeah.
Yeah, they were.
Is there anyone else? All right. Seeing as there's no one else, does anyone want to make a motion to close the public hearing? All in favor? Aye. All right, next item on the agenda is the discussion possible decision of application PZC 26-004 for the application for modification of special use permit and settlement agreement conditions relative to food vendors and food trucks. Any discussion?
Only comment I have is it's consistent. Am I on? Thank you. The only comment I have is doing this would be consistent with our current plan of conservation and development, where it says that Summers should continue to support farms and farming and allow for agritourism uses to help sustain existing farms. So this is consistent with what we as a town has voted on as one of our missions to help preserve farms in Summers.
All right. Anyone want to make a motion?
Motion to approve the special use permit. Application PZ 26-004.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Next item is the public hearing for application PZC 26-006, Giuliano Family 1, LLC, seeking a modification of special use permit conditions of approval regarding processing of materials.
Jim, did you want, Brian can talk first, but I do have some things to submit for the record.
Okay. We'll let Brian talk first, and then Brian, just make sure you're close to the microphone so the folks can hear you.
Yeah, you got it. So basically, up at 47 Old Hampton Road, we have a special use permit up there to take material and boulders and whatnot out of the property. The hours are regulated, the days are regulated. What I didn't realize when I went for it, there was a to-do about processing material. And a lot of the questions that I fielded originally about this matter when we were on this almost a year ago was about crushing rock and processing rock and making gravel. So that was an interest that we never had or never shared or anything like that. So it wasn't a big deal. So no big deal. We don't need to process anything like that. Making stone requires water. There's no water or anything up there or anything of the sort. So as you know, when we got in there and we started taking our material out, we needed to sift it. So we need to simply remove, softball size and baseball size rocks from the sand that was left over from a gravel operation from years ago. And we got a special use permit. I didn't interpret it that way, but, apparently people did. So here we are. And the machine that we're using is something this is not a commercial operation. This is a machine that gets towed behind a pickup truck. I think when people think of processing material, they think of conveyors and all kinds of crazy things going on, water and all kinds of big equipment. That's not what it is. It's a 19,000-pound excavator that scoops up some dirt left over from, a 1980s gravel operation, puts it in a sifter that we tow behind the pickup truck, and it vibrates, and then sand comes out the front, and we take out between 0 and 5 loads a day. So that was the whole thing on the processor. The town's been up there. They've taken pictures of the machine. They've been there several times. It's just sitting on concrete blocks twice the size of this table that I'm sitting at right here, and that's what it does. So that was the application at hand was about processing material. I don't look at it that way. It's just taking rocks out of sand. And those rocks, we use those rocks to build our little walls with and stuff like that. So.
Does anyone have any questions for Brian while he's up here? Okay. Jennifer, do you want to let us know what you received?
Took a page out of John Clark's book. Jennifer Roy for the record. I'm going to pass out a few things to you guys to review. One is my staff report. 2 is Joanna Shapiro. She gave a very detailed explanation of our site visit on June 4th, photos, and explained what the photos were. And then there's several pages and a couple of packets of email complaints that I've been asked to provide to each one of you for the record. Some of them might be redundant, but it's because of who was replying to who. So we will mark these all exhibits for the record. And in my review, basically just to summarize, when I did go up and take a look at the sifter, looked at the definition and explained to Brian that it's processing by definition. So one of the conditions of approval was no fracking, splitting, jackhammering, or processing.
Right.
So with that in there, a cease and desist was issued even after he made application for modification because of the complaints that he was still processing daily.
Brian, you can take a seat if you want, and we're just going to keep the public hearing open if there's anyone else that wants to speak.
Do you want copies, Brian, of anything?
Sure.
Oh, I got more. As the applicant, you should have copies of the One more. You were my email correspondent.
These are all extras. There's two. That's it. There's no one else for public comment on this? Can you
Hello,
see?
my name's Kevin Barbo. I live at 66 Hangdog Lane, roughly about a half mile from the site. I guess in order to avoid some redundancy, I'll stick to a couple of key points that I think are not yet brought up. On April 1st, by definition, the town described to us what processing was. I'm not sure any of the residents in my neighborhood came up with a definition for what constituted sifting or processing. I believe the land use attorney also weighed in on the subject, and processing was processing. The CEO issued a clarification to the landowner on April 1st, shortly after, that the processing, no matter what size, was still processing. There was no delineation between a sifter and a processing unit, commercial processing unit. I don't want to debate the points of some of the other smaller details, but so from that point forward, on a number of occasions, processing was ongoing, and we reported them, and I'm hoping they're part of that package that you got today. On May 7th, for this commission, I believe it was this commission, the land use office proceeded to suggest a couple of workarounds that would have allowed to modify the special use permit by scratching out the word processing or determining what was considered a small processing unit versus the large commercial processing unit. At that time, the land use attorney for the town told the CEO that this was processing and it needed to come before the special meeting that we have tonight. Shortly thereafter, so at that point in time, everybody knew what processing was, and it was not permitted under the special use permit. Cease and desist orders were created. The land use attorney had weighed in, the CEO had weighed in. Processing continued even after the land use attorney had said we need to have a public hearing. And to avoid any confusion on whether processing is processing on Sunday, May 31st, processing was ongoing almost all day. I believe I forwarded recordings to most of you, officially or unofficially received, I'm not sure. But pretty annoying. And the processing of that on a Sunday violated two conditions of the permit. One, no processing, and Sunday hours of operation. So moving forward to May 7th, May 21st, I think there was a clear defining of what was allowed and what was not. And it kind of goes back to our meeting here in October, when we just need to have some regulations that keep this between the guardrails. There's been a number of things that I would like to talk about without my comments strictly related to processing and other activities that are on site. I wait the opportunity to take a look at the June 4th, June 6th visit by the committee. So, I do have some comments, more of a summary of what I think you might have, but just in case, I brought these with me for the record to pass out to you folks. Any comments? Any questions?
No questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks.
Any other comments? We'll have to make another copy.
What's that?
Oh, we can share one. Hello.
Hello. Peter Bollier, 80 Old Hampton Road, a direct butter.
Can you just sign your name too on that sheet?
Just want to read a short statement. I'd like to thank Mr. Curtis, who is not appearing tonight, but has appeared before a number of boards in the town regarding the applications on this property. Also, Mr. Barbeau for his appearance tonight, once again appearing before other boards and administrators throughout this whole process for the last 2 years. Mr. Curtis and Mr. Barbeau have presented to multiple boards and administrators. Giuliano Family One has been preparing for and operating a large commercial enterprise in violation of the town bylaws and once granted the conditions of the special use permit since the properties located in a residential zone were first purchased in 2024. And Mr. Barbeau just pointed out additional violations that have happened since April. So I was unaware of the visit on June 4th, so this might not apply, Jen. Any board member who reviews the history of this property since 2024 and does a site visit with independent environmental and legal representatives will see the incredible damage done to the property. Legal will see that the conditions of the SUP have been violated beyond any measure. Environmental will see the damage done by uncontrolled runoff that will most likely include fuel and oil contamination from the fleet of trucks and earth-moving vehicles on the site. Thrasher Brook, south of this site, has most likely been significantly damaged. I believe that video was provided last fall or last winter of runoff that was just filling Thrasher Brook south of the site with an incredible amount of silt and debris. It was heartbreaking. And then I just have to say, the irony of tonight's meeting, okay, on one hand you have one applicant who has followed the law, who has gone through the processes that give all the stakeholders, Oak Ridge Dairy, that give all of the stakeholders the opportunity to debate the merits of the application in the hopes that what each party presents will sway the board to a favorable outcome for them. On the other hand, you have Giuliano Family One, who did not do that. The abutters and the residents in the neighborhood surrounding 7 and 47 Old Hampton Road never got to debate the application before any work was done to the site. Giuliano Family One has done whatever they wanted, whenever they wanted, at the site, knowing that the town was not going to stop them once the commercial enterprise had been started, again, in a residential area. Based on all of the evidence that has been presented in opposition to the modification of the existing SUP and the total disregard of the applicant to conduct business with the boards in the manner that every other town resident in business would be expected to conduct their business, I respectfully encourage that the board deny this application and immediately set about enforcing the multiple existing cease and desist orders on this property. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Jim, I just would like to state a couple of things for the record. I feel it's important that it's in the record. I did not get legal advice as to what the definition of processing was. I looked it up myself. The Attorney Ziska said, yes, it would require a public hearing because Mr. Giuliano's attorney felt if it was a minor modification, you might not have to have a public hearing. So Attorney Ziska said, yes, you do, which I knew you needed to have a public hearing.
Right.
So it's very clear to me what the definition of processing is. I shared that with Mr. Giuliano, and he's applied for this modification. And I also want to state on the record that at our meeting last month, when you received the application, I was not looking for any workaround, nor stating that you scratch off processing. Stated that the simple change would be you would need to remove the word processing from that condition if you felt it necessary to allow him to process.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, just a couple of things. Brian Giuliano, Hampton Road, Somers, Connecticut. The comments made about working on Sundays and sifting on Sundays and stuff, that's false. We have never run that machine on Sundays. I am all over that machine. I live right there. The town of Somers comes there, which I don't like it, but it is what it is, unannounced. They just show up. And you could ask them, there's no large commercial scale operations. We have a tenant living in a house down below there, an opportunity that this particular person never would have had to come out into the country and live in a beautiful town like this. People think that house is a scale house. They submit video to the town of Somers saying that the trucks come in and radio into the house. They think people are working in Mr. Laraby's old house. It's just a kid who works for, he shows up for work every morning at 6 in the morning. The whole thing is so disproportionate. We've given the town all the GPS documents, everything showing that we've taken so far less material out of there. And I know they disagree with that, but that's what happens. You get these types of projects going on, you're always going to get these haters. And it's the stuff that's said is not true. I think it's backed by the town who's been there. There was one day where I had to go up there in my own truck and get a little bit of topsoil for a project I was doing at the house down the corner, helping the kid out that lives there. I was there for probably 10 minutes, and I videoed myself because I knew somebody would probably call. It's me. I'm not selling. It's not a commercial operation. It's me and my 11-year-old son going up there and getting 4 scoops of topsoil to grow some grass in the spring season. And when it's at the town and phone calls and this and appearances and let's go, I'm changing meetings and stuff I have the next day over going up and getting a couple scoops of soil. Every time they go there, it's crickets. We had just a gentleman up there today just walking around the land, asked me for permission to just go walk around and look for, animal droppings and stuff like that. And there's he's running into people in the woods, red in the face, what's going on? There wasn't a truck up there today. It's just and my friend called me and goes, what's happening here? Don't you? I said, yeah, I have a special use permit to do this, so I just want to refute some of that stuff. There's nothing going on up there on the weekends. If anybody's up there, it's my own personal self. And after 27 years in business, I'm not out there schlepping on the weekends doing that stuff anymore. So I just wanted to set that clear. That's all.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other comments?
Yeah.
Sean Curtis, 90 Old Hampton Road. Since we're setting the record straight,
I'm not familiar with what's in the packet. I'll assume there's a number of my correspondence. 7:30 a.m. Tuesday morning, coming back from dropping off my daughters at school, I decided to go down and look at my property. And as I'm driving down the road at 7:30 a.m., this Giuliano pulls dump truck, dual axle, fully loaded with debris. I sent a video to Mr. Roy. I don't think there's a scale house at the beginning. In fact, I think the property looks great. What you've done down there with the house, I think it looks great. But as I sent the video, as I came up on the truck, going down to my property, it was fully loaded with debris at 7:30 a.m. In the meeting that I had with a town official earlier this week, that town official on that June 4th site visit also indicated that they observed, and Mr. Giuliano admittedly said, that he was digging and burying debris, stumps. So tonight is about a special use permit for processing. But I think if we want to set the record straight on a number of these issues, which we can see that this is a compounded effect, is that we have a special use permit in front of us that permits certain activities. And there's a lot going on outside what's permitted. In that same permit, it says that there's no additional digging for other than dislodging of boulders. So how can town officials go up to that site on June 4th and admittedly acknowledge that Mr. Giuliano is digging and burying debris when that special use permit clearly says no additional digging? So I'll leave it at that and keep it short and sweet tonight.
Thank you.
So I just want to refute that. The town of Summers came up there on June 4th with, maybe said, hey, can we go up today? Sure, I cancel my day, I go up there. The place is clean as a whistle. There's no debris or anything like that. And I walked it with the town and I explained to them. I brought them to more places than they wanted to go because I knew this was coming. So I wanted them to see. Come on, let's go. Let's walk this whole place. We showed them the whole thing. I figured to myself, we cancel out the day, let's make use of it. There's no burying debris or anything like that. The only debris that comes in loaded trucks and stuff are from that property itself. I'm not sure the exact size of it, but you put all the parcels together, and it's a lot. And as I've said 100 times, everybody's sick of hearing it. We were up there as kids, all through the 80s, early 90s, riding up there, and the place grew in. It's a mess. So all the junk and the gunk that I've taken out of the woods and those trails that go literally from the Massachusetts border all the way down to Stafford Road, it's enormous. It's a lot of sticks and branches and trees and stumps and stuff that we have to cut so we can open it up. We're able to ride in there now. We were able to have a great snowmobiling season in there. We were able to snowmobile up in there, and all the trails are opened up. That house, they mentioned it looks great. We're not done yet. It's definitely improving and looking better and better. We're super proud of it. But there's a lot of stuff that comes off of that house, and a lot of down trees and old growth and stuff that we're taking and moving up there. What I told the town was I had a slope where I had a bunch of sticks and crappy stuff, and we're talking stumps like this that have decayed up there for 40 years. So we just kind of push that on a hillside for now until we decide what we're going to do with our next phase of it. But the place is clean. The town saw it. The wetlands agent's been up there. There's a couple of things that I pointed out to the wetlands agent that I wasn't happy with when I got into the woods. I told her I was going to take care of that within 2 weeks of June 4th. Just a little adjustment of the fence and some of the little runoff areas and stuff that all go into a little retention area. And she just wanted to see some of that shored up with some rock and stuff like that, just so we don't get any silt going into our retention, which is up at top. Nothing down near Thrasher Brook. So I just wanted to set that record straight.
Thank you. Just restate your name,
Yep. Peter Bollier. What's absolutely amazing is that when clear evidence, and facts are presented regarding what's happened on this property that anybody can see, then to have. Let me go back to the original special use permit. I think it was fun. I wish I had it with me so I could read it. Maybe Jen could pull it up in the meantime. But it was basically to scrape some boulders maybe level, and then potentially put in a lawn as a residential area. Correct? So, any definition of, if you look at the site now, and you try to say, under any circumstance, how that met the original plans for Giuliano Family One for that property, and you see what it looks like now, and you see what's been done, in no way does it match what he requested. In no way has he complied with the conditions of the special use permit. The town has been presented with numerous pieces of evidence, video, pictures, whatever, that clearly show these violations. It's great that he used to ride motorcycles up there. I used to ride motorcycles up there back in the late 70s. Okay? It's a great area. It's a beautiful area. Okay? Not anymore. Not for the abutters, and not for the people, not for the neighbors who live up in Cooksville or down Stafford Road that have to put up with a commercial operation. I don't doubt that he went up and got a couple shovelfuls of topsoil with his son. It's his property. But for him to claim that that's basically all I'm doing, come on. Look, go up there, see for yourself, see the evidence that's been presented. In no way, in my opinion, does this application deserve to be approved. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Jennifer Roy, for the record. I just wanted to comment regarding the digging and burying of stumps. There are photos there of everything. Joanna Shapiro, she's our erosion control agent, and she did speak to Mr. Giuliano about, some additional silt fencing and other places where you could tighten things up, and she gave you a good description of what she wanted. But as far as any town official having a conversation of digging and burying stumps, I don't know who that town official was, because we never discussed with Mr. Giuliano burying stumps, because you can't do that. And he's not doing that. There are definitely piles of stumps and some logs. You can see it in the photos. Yep. But short of stating which town official stated that and having them testify on the record, I think that you should
I understand.
Perceive that as
right. No,
true.
We need to have evidence of such allegations, and that's part of the process, and we will consider that, what we have in front of us and what the pictures show. And
if you have questions of my director, Jeff Catlett is here tonight. So it was Joanna, myself, and Jeff Catlett. We were the three town officials that we did walk the site.
Okay. Did know. Any other comments? Can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
I have a question.
Sure.
First, it's been a while since we've had any kind of gravel operation in town, and I seem to remember the oversight involving a lot of, at least for the planning side where I worked, a lot of issues around slope and grade. But I'm never really clear about what was permissible in a gravel operation. Did we ever have processing on site for any of our operations, to the best of anyone's knowledge?
I know there's been many. The one that was in operation when I started here 11 years ago was wood gravel. Mm-hmm. And there was problems with slopes and a lot of dust. That was the complaints. But
was there processing equipment involved?
They had equipment there, yes.
They did process on site?
Yes, and our zoning regulations allow for an earthwork operation in all zones, with a special use permit.
Okay. Thank you. I am uncertain on closing the public hearing simply because I have this pile of documents in front of me relevant to the process.
Well, could we close it and give ourselves time to review it and then make a decision?
Okay.
Yeah, that's perfectly
Okay.
permissible. Yeah, if you think that the information,
I
I
would
want you
like-
to
I would
ask
like
more
time to
questions,
read
or
this,
other
but
people, they're open. But if it's the kind of material you just want to be fully familiar with before you vote, then you, by all means, you can close it. You just won't be able to.
Because I tried
ask
to
them.
skim through it while we were talking, but I was listening to folks and
Yeah.
didn't get as far as I was hoping.
Well, and there's a lot here. Some of it is redundant.
Under that condition, make a motion to close public hearing on PZ 26-006.
All in favor?
Aye.
So I think for the next item on the agenda is this discussion and possible decision. I think the best
Move to
idea,
table.
table that, so we have time to review all the documents that we've gotten.
Make a motion to table the discussion and possible decision zoning application PZ 26-006.
A second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. All right, the next item is public hearing application PZC 26-007, Oak Ridge Dairy LLC, seeking a special use permit for the storage of manure per section 214-3.3.C.5. D of the zoning regulations. Hi, Dory.
Good evening. Am I talking close enough
Yep.
to the microwave? Microphone. Okay, for the record, Attorney Dory Reiser, KKC Law. I'm representing the applicants here. I have the applicant representative Seth Baylor and David Moser, and we also have Jay Ursery, who's setting up the plans, so we'll be discussing that shortly. As you noted on the agenda, this is an application for storage of manure at 39 Hurlburt Road. I would be remiss in my job if I didn't clearly state for the record that our position does remain that this use does not constitute storage of manure, and rather it's simply part of the process of fertilizing our crops. We have taken an appeal to that effect, but in the spirit of cooperation and in an attempt to avoid prolonged litigation, we are seeking this permit for storage manure here on this site. I would also note that what it really boils down to, as far as I can tell, and why it's being deemed storage, is because the manure is being held temporarily in a tank before it's transferred into the robotic 360 rain device that applies it to the field. So it's being held temporarily in the tank. We talked about this at length previously, to transfer it into the robotic device to spray it on the fields. Rather than just being stockpiled in solid form directly on the fields prior to spreading. So the real storage component seems to be not having manure there, because there's always been manure there, but previously it was not contained and it was directly in solid form stockpiled on the fields, and now it's being deemed storage because it's temporarily in this transfer tank before it goes out to the 360 spreader. The reason I make that point is because I think when we present tonight on the issue of storage of manure, we are going to be speaking specifically to those transfer tanks, okay? That is what this hearing is about, not about general fertilizing practices, not about fertilization and whether it should be allowed or not about whether or not manure should be allowed or not on the site. It's these tanks in connection with the alleged storage of it before it gets into our dispersal system with the Rain 360. So, with regard to those tanks, as you saw from my narrative, the applicant is proposing to use 4 quarter-inch steel movable tanks as a device to transfer and facilitate the transfer of digestate from the supply trucks to the Rain 360 device that goes out and spreads it over the fields. I am going to have Jay describe the details of how we have sited the tanks and what's involved in that. But before I go there, I will let you know that yes, we did send notice to to the abutters as required by your regulations. I believe the Jay's office suggested. I believe they sent you evidence of that. We did submit a copy of the application to the U.S. Department of Agricultural and RCS, Adam McShielo, the district conservationist, and to DEEP. via Emily Marshall with the Water Permitting and Enforcement Division of the Bureau of Materials Management and Compliance Assurance. Your regulations require that prior to any application for new or enlarged storage manure, that a simultaneous application be made to those two entities, Department of Ag and DEEP. We have not received any specific comments on that other than an acknowledgement that they did in fact receive a copy of the application that we provided them. We sent it with a statement saying we are pursuing a special permit at the request of the town for storage manure. We're just copying you, keeping you in the loop on that. So again, we haven't received any specific comments from any of those people about it, but I don't really expect to, because both agencies are aware that this RAIN 360 robotic device has been in place and operating on the Hurlburt Road property for at least one season prior. Was it more than that? Just one. Last year was the first year. Okay, but we are in discussions with DEEP on a routine basis, as we need to be as we go through and monitor compliance with our CAFO permit and any revisions and updates that are necessary. So they know what's happening. I guess with that, I will turn it over to Jay. I'm going to ask him to familiarize you with the site and where these where these tanks will be. And I will also let you know that the Conservation Commission, the Wetlands Commission, granted a permit to construct the driveway. Oh, no, that's on the other property. Take that back. Sorry, I'm confusing it with another site. Take it away, Jay.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
For the record, Jay Ersley, J.R. Russo and Associates here representing Oak Ridge Dairy. And I'm just going to give you an overview of where we're located on Hurlburt Road. And I just passed out a copy of the town's GIS. And you'll see on there that I've labeled an area that says well. And I'm sure all of you are pretty familiar with where this is. As you drive by this location, there's a well house there. It's been there for decades, prior to you guys owning it. I think probably goes back to the chance that we're using it for irrigating potatoes, I would imagine. So the plan set that you have in front of you, there's 2 pages to it. There's a key map, which is page 1, which I've got up here on the board. Here's Hurlburt Road. And we're showing an area here that we're calling the subject area as well. It's located right there. So as we look at this, we'll see we've got frontage on Hurlburt Road, and then we come down, we've got frontage over here on Fort Ridge, a little bit on Georgewood, right on here around the corner. It's about 185 acres in total in terms of site area. So now there's a second page to your plan set, and on page 2, there's some information that gives us a little more detail in terms of what we're looking at. The location of the transfer tank. So if you were to drive by there today, or if you went by there last year, the site was functioning, you would have seen the well house, which when you go to page 2, you can see is located right here. The tanks were located in this area, and we've moved them back. If we go into your zoning regulation, the agricultural regulation, it talks about agricultural type structures, setback requirements for property lines, and so forth. And there's a setback requirement of 100 feet from a property line or a street line. And so the transfer tanks have been moved back so that we're 100 feet from the street line or property line of Hurlburt Road. So if you look here, you see that there's a setback dimension here, and the tanks have moved back to this location. There's a slight modification of the driveway that's currently there to allow trucks to come through, be able to offload into the tanks and come back around and come out.
How come we are not able to look at it?
We're required to present to the commission, so we have to direct our comments to the commission so they can see the information.
Are we the people that are...
They're presenting to the commission.
At some point after our presentation, if you want to take a brief recess and let people review the map, we wouldn't have an objection to that, but for purposes of the presentation, we will be making it to this board.
Thank you.
So as I said, to meet the requirement in the zoning regulation in terms of setback, they've been moved back to this location, and a slight modification of the gravel driveway that's located here to allow trucks to come in, offload, turn, and come back out. There's also an area here that's shown in front of this, and I think if you read the application, Attorney Reiser sent in, we're describing the area here. In the case of a leak, you've got a depression area there that would pick it up so nothing's going to flow out into the street, out into Robert Road. Up there. There's some comments, or I guess conditions, I think that Jen Roy put in there that we also had in our application. This is going to be a little different than the way it was and what you saw before. The area is going to have cameras, so it'll be monitored 360. It's also going to be inspected on a regular basis by Oak Ridge employees, as well as the tanks themselves will be inspected annually by an engineer, a structural engineer. So there will be ongoing inspections as well as video surveillance and lighting at the site, which currently isn't there because there's seems to be a lot of concern maybe about vandalism, which they haven't had any vandalism as to date, but obviously there's a lot of folks here who are concerned, so we're trying to do everything we can do to make this as safe as possible. As Attorney Reiser indicated to you, and I think you have some material on the tanks themselves, these are 1/4-inch steel plate tanks. They're very common in this industry. I think probably all of you have seen these tanks in use in different places in the area, construction sites and so forth. So it's not something that's new to this industry or the construction industry. So those, as I said, will be located here, and you have some information in your packets that talks to you a little bit about that. So that's a basic overview of the site, where it is, how it relates to setbacks in terms of your zoning regulations. And at this point in time, I don't have any more information for you. If you need information in terms of specifics on how machinery works, that would be Phyllis Oak Ridge.
Right, thank you, Jay. I know that we are creating a record here. I think that though the actual operations of the Range 360 probably are not relevant, because we are talking just about the 4 transfer tanks for the storage, if you will, of manure. We did speak at length about how the Range 360 operates at prior meetings like with you and Conservation and ZBA. If you do want some information on that for the record, then we can certainly have my clients provide that. But again, I think our review tonight, the best I understood it, was that we're focusing on the storage of manure, and that then focuses on these 4 transfer tanks. The tanks will be filled on a daily basis by trucks from the Ellington home farm for Oak Ridge Dairy. It will carry digestate out, it will be pumped into these tanks, and then on a metered basis, slowly go straight out on into the robotic Range 360 for application to the fields. As Jay mentioned in the narrative, we have provided information on the tanks. There's a spec sheet. We have also offered as conditions that there will be at least weekly monitoring and visual inspections of all tanks and connections by Oak Ridge. We will also go above and beyond and provide an annual certification and review by a certified engineer of the tanks to make sure everything is operating properly and there haven't been any failures or weaknesses discovered in any of those connections or the tanks themselves. There will be 24-hour surveillance via camera. There will be security lighting to protect. There's really no rational reason to suspect that these tanks will fail. Could there be some leakage in connection with the filling? Potentially, but as Jay mentioned, the grading at the site, that will all be contained on site, and it'd be very minor. It'd be something that's noticeable right away and that we could certainly address and deal with. But concerns about mass failure would just be unwarranted and completely speculative. On that, I will say I have prepared just in anticipation of what we may hear.
If I may, I just have
Yes.
a question. Jay earlier raised the specter of vandalism on the tanks. I was looking at the map, and I noticed that you have put in kind of a retention pond for any larger spills. Can you speak to how effectively, given the slope of the land, that would keep any major catastrophic failure away from that whalehead?
For the record, J. Ersby, J.R. Russo. So the depression that we've provided down gradient of the tanks is there to keep anything from leaving the property and getting out into the street. So right now it's sized for approximately 22,000 gallons, which is the full volume of one of those tanks, if one of those tanks were to fail. We don't anticipate that that's ever going to happen, but if there were some small leaks, maybe a piping leak or something like that, in the manifold area coming off the tanks, it would be picked up in that low area. So if you were to think about that, it's about the size or volume of those of you who may have an in-ground swimming pool that's maybe 16 by 30 or 16 by 36 with a deep end and a shallow end. That's 20-some odd thousand gallons of water. And the pressure that we have there is capable of holding that amount of volume.
So a catastrophic failure of a single tank would not reach the wellhead, is what you're telling me?
Right.
Okay.
It would be contained in that depression, which could then be pumped out. And even just to quantify, I believe we were talking that even if it did fill up, that's the amount of digestate that we would use to fertilize roughly 4 acres of our field.
Right.
Even if it stayed there and slowly infiltrated, it wouldn't have a catastrophic environmental impact on the ground because it's how much we would maybe apply to 4 acres of our much larger acre farm that we're fertilizing up there. But we don't intend for there, if there were that type of very unexpected catastrophic failure, we would pump it back into a tank and then use it on the fields.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Along that line, again, we talk about catastrophic failure. Again, the design.
We're not here because everything goes well.
Exactly, but the design of these tanks are such that you can't reasonably expect that could happen. I mean, you're going to come and pull and hit it and blow it up, maybe. But, I mean, we can't plan for that kind of stuff, right? We have to do everything within reason, and that's a little bit beyond reason to expect that all 4 of these tanks might implode at some point and cause a failure. We've got full capacity to contain a leak if that ever did happen. But what I want to say is, because I'm sure we're going to hear a lot of what ifs, I have prepared a memo that I'm going to hand out to you and just take you through briefly. And I'm not going to read it word for word, but I'm going to summarize. And it basically just says that a commission cannot deny an application based on general references to protecting public health, safety, and welfare, or general references to environmental impacts and mere speculative concerns. That will not support a commission's denial of an application. Your decisions have to be based on substantial evidence, which is defined as evidence that provides a substantial basis of fact from which the fact in issue can be reasonably inferred. So mere allegations of what ifs and speculative concerns about catastrophic failures, those don't meet this standard. You have to have more than a mere possibility of harm. You have to have a likelihood that it could possibly happen as well. And I've given you a number of cases here that support that premise. Environmental risks certainly can be considered, but again, possibility is not enough to support a denial. You need evidence of probability. So I just want to guide you on that. I hope it will stay in your thoughts and mind as you're listening to any comments that may come up with regard to this application. And I again would urge you that this application should be narrowly focused to what I believe the permit we're looking for is for these 4 transfer tanks. Any questions with regard to what Jake's presented or what I've said, please feel free to ask. Otherwise, we reserve all rights to respond at the conclusion of comments and make a final statement prior to closing the hearing.
Thank you.
Happy, please?
Jim, did you want my documents first and then?
Yeah, we'll do that
So, what I'm going to provide you guys with is my staff comment, which attached to it is Attorney Mike Ziska's confirmation that this is about the storage tanks.
Yeah.
And he speaks a little bit about any other environmental things that of what you should and shouldn't have to consider. I've also been passing out comments from Jeff Catlett, our Director of Land Use and Health and Sanitarian. It's basically some notes of what we've chronologically been doing, working with and trying to get information from DEEP and regarding their KFO permit.
Jim, do you have another copy of that?
I do, I'm sorry, yeah.
I don't think I got
oh, yeah.
Attorney Ziska's attachment to your memo.
Oh, you did it?
Or Jeff's comments.
Oh. Yeah, we have, I should have it.
Did you get this?
Is that one?
Yeah.
Is that one, Jeff?
Yeah.
Do you have this one?
Yeah, there's
Yeah, I have it.
And along with Jeff Catlett's notes, I'm going to include the documents he was able to get from DEEP. And, or I believe Oak Ridge provided us with the draft of their info. And I did receive 2 written correspondence, one from Scott and Tracy Wiley, 54 Lubier Drive, expressing concerns and opposition, and one from Helene and Claudio Orifice expressing some concerns just regarded to that it's limited to just 4 containers and they're going to remain on the property when they're not in use.
Is that it, Jennifer? For your
I'm sorry?
Is that it for your documents?
Yes.
Okay. You can open that up.
Good evening. Can everyone hear me?
Can you? I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. My name is John Parks. I'm an attorney with an office in Enfield, Connecticut. Property owners in the neighborhood abutting 39 Furwood Road requested me to review Oak Ridge's application PCC 26-007. I have reviewed what the applicant has submitted to the town. I have reviewed the provisions of your zoning regulations. Specifically, I have reviewed the sections in your regulation applicable to both groundwater protection, section 7.12, and actions are and the actions that they're requesting for this board. So I compared those two. And in connection with tonight's hearing, I have prepared a short blue notebook which I would request be made part of the record for tonight's hearing. I have copies to distribute to each member of this commission, as well as the attorney for the applicant and the surveyor for the applicant. But I don't have enough copies for everybody in this room, but I did leave a yellow line pad on the chair I was sitting in, and I will supply a copy to anyone whose email is on that paper when I get this done or by the end of the night. For the record, I'd like to hand out these to And what I've done with this notebook is I have numbered the pages, and if I stay in my lane, I'm going to, for the record, list the page within this notebook that the document that I'm talking on, so that anything that I forget is in there, and if I get off track, which sometimes happens, at least I've covered the basis. So the first thing I'd like to direct the board to is on page 14. And what I've done is I photocopied your regulation on groundwater protection. And specifically, B4, which says that plans for new and enlarged storage sites shall be submitted for review to the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection and the United States Department of Agriculture no later than the day of the submission of any application for the zoning permit for such site. So I don't know the date of this application, but I didn't see any proof that this has been done. And we've made FOIA requests to the first selectman, to your Jeff Caplet there, to Deep, and Deep gets back to you and says, you'll hear from us in 7 weeks. So this process is quicker than that process, and my experience with Deep has been referred to by some of my clients as stonewalling, and the applicant is not within the guardrails. The applicant applied to Deep. I have a copy of the application for a permit for 4 properties in the town of Ellington, listed on the application. And those 4 properties have to have a plan that shows how their waste byproduct from their commercial cattle operation in Ellington is used. So what's happening here in the town of Somers is a lot different than what they're permitted. And I know, and I'm not going to ask you, I'm just giving you a little backdrop. What's happening is these trucks they have so much, they have like 30 million gallons of this digestate sitting in a containment pond in Ellington, and they can't possibly use all of that based on their own math within those 4 properties. And so what they're doing is they're bringing it into the town of Somers outside of what their original permit was for. They're putting it on any farm that will accept it, whether they own it or not, which is how the accident up on Pioneer Heights happened. I think they were either putting it on Irish Ben's farm or somebody else's farm, but way outside of what their 2022 permit allowed. But, so, unless I see that application pursuant to section 7.12, that's a fatal defect. It's a condition precedent to any application like this because it says the plans for the new enlarged manure storage shall be submitted to review by both no later than today. So right there, there's a fatal flaw in their application because your regulation requires that. And we have been hearing before the Zoning Board of Appeals and before the Wetlands Commission in this town that we have our permits, we're all set to do this. That is inaccurate, okay? And your regulation, thank God you have it, your regulation protects the groundwater. And specifically, the need for protection comes because if you look at the map on page 1 from the site so what I did on page 1 was I got the town's aerial and we have had residents concerned and volunteering drawing on the plan the existing ancient culverts that have been there longer than anyone knows. And they were there, and here's my problem with this plan by J.R. Russo. So my problem with this plan by J.R. Russo is it's
We didn't get there. I think the page in front.
It's an A2 as to a very small part of the property. But what the problem is here, and these people should see this, is this property.
Well, now the commission can't see it.
Okay. This property slopes towards Four Bridges Road. There's a 12-foot drop between this and Ann LeVec's well, okay? And so the idea of this regulation that your board adopted in 2022 was to protect, because most of us are on wells in this town. So we want to have water that's not contaminated with the highly concentrated nitrate substances that they're applying. This is not manure. This is manure on steroids. This manure, you can just smell it. It's more powerful. It's too powerful. So in other words, it's powerful enough to grow their plants, but it's also powerful enough, and you have the power here because you are supposed to protect this groundwater. Now, what you can't see on this plan, but you can see it on the first 3 pages of my book, which is, you can see the outline, you can see the elevation at the well of 212, and then you can see Ann LeVec's well at 199. So this goes downhill. And what exacerbated this and what made me skeptical of this whole application is, yes, your regulation allows and suggests an appropriate plan for what's being suggested here. And what's happened is this plan is based on, they didn't survey this. This is based on 1988 data that, you could just see on the website. Well, the problem is that this applicant has been
working this property for the past few years. And what they've been doing is they've been installing swales and they've been removing trees and they've been intensifying the flow towards these down gradient ancient see the plan doesn't show. They got swales. They got a network of swales on this property that channel runoff, which will eventually contain this distilling towards all of these people. And there's photographs in the thing. All of these people with wells. You can see these ancient culverts, but what you don't see is that the 1988 data showing, what the topography was when their fathers owned this property, it has been worked, and it's you don't notice it if you're driving by looking at 185 acres, but if you had a survey of this, you would see how this large parcel has been is essentially funneling runoff towards Fort Bridges Road. And so whatever's contained in the runoff is going to Fort Bridges Road. And Phil Eastwood and Ann Levesque have wells out in front of their house and culverts that come across the road to their side of the road. So thank God you have this this groundwater protection, because you have the power to protect these and make requirements on this applicant to ensure that. Like, for example, where's the containment for these things? So if it fails, it's just going to go into a hole or a depression in the ground. How is that protecting that concentrated distillate from getting into groundwater? And the answer is it's not. So, so pages 1 through 3 show you the elevations and the property. They do not show you the network of swales, because they have been subtly working this property for probably the last 5 years. And where the town's GIS, the same 1988 data that they have, shows it just gradually coming to these roads. That's not what it is now. There's culverts, there's swales directing this through these culverts. So what they're trying to do is put highly concentrated nitrogen on the property. It shouldn't be even spreading this out in the first place based on their permit, and now channeling it to these people. Not to mention the odor for all these nice houses and $100 million houses now have a very pungent odor that they have to deal with. So I think there's a fatal defect in the application, because there's been no proof that there was a simultaneously filing. There is no containment shown on this plan, and I mean a containment that's impervious. And on page 27 is the engineer I hired before the Wetlands Commission, so that you have expert evidence in this record of what. No details are provided as to how the gravel driveway will be constructed safely. No soil tests have been conducted. This is Steve Trinkus of Trinkus Engineering. What is the length, width, and height of the tanks? I don't know. I maybe that handout will explain that. Are they on the ground, or are they structurally? So there needs to be a containment base, not just if one swimming pool's worth. So there's 4 swimming pools worth of digestate in those containers. So if one fails, then at least we won't have like a tsunami of distillate rushing down into these wells. But if 4 fail, well, there's no answer to that. We don't know how it's pumped out of these tanks because the problem is spillage, okay? And when we were before your commission, before Jimmy McKee was here, and he said that 400 cubic yards of liquid manure converts to 80,000 gallons of liquid manure. Containment for 20. So the other 60. Now, so here's what we have. So we're going to have a robotic thing spreading it, so no human. And the requirements are that they stay 100 feet away from culverts. So they're going to program that into that machine, 100 feet away from culverts. And, I think we need to see a better plan that shows the grade, that shows the network of swales, and then some kind of containment to try to protect these poor young gradient people from this contamination. Now, Oak Ridge's attorney has given us general, well, we can do this, it's allowed in our permit. So I don't claim to know everything about digestate. So on page 29, I typed into AI. Oak Ridge Dairy operates a large dairy in Ellington, Connecticut. On that farm, they have aerobic digester for manure, which results in liquid manure digestate, which is then trucked to the town of Enfield and stored in portable tanks. So I asked AI, is this allowed? AI said, no, this is not allowed. Okay? So we have D's who won't respond to FOIs. We have generalization from the applicant that we're covered. We're not covered. These trucks shouldn't even be coming into the town of Summers because it exceeds their permit. So not only are they coming into the town of Summers, they're spreading their waste on properties with no accountability. That accident, and they know about it because it was in the patch, where their truck hit a telephone pole up on Pioneer Heights, wasn't property that they should have been on. It certainly wasn't on their original application. To page 23, I put a publication from Department of Health on the dangers of well contamination. So page 23 will explain all the cancers that these down gradient people are going to be exposed to. Then we have the pictures, okay? Let's look at page 13. Page 13 is what we call the Brown Trail. The Brown Trail runs all the way from Jobs Hill Road down to Watchog Road, okay? That is spillage, okay? They're not supposed to spill. That Brown Trail developed within about 4 hours yesterday as they had 50 to 70 trucks bringing that into Summers. And the problem is that you don't know when they're coming. You don't know how to do it. But look at page 12. Well, security cameras can pick it up. And there they are at, looks like 7:22:07 a.m. So why is that truck there? Why is the road state? Why are they in the town of Summers? Where is their approval to be here? Then we get on to the storage tanks. You regulate this. Your regulation says that if we look at your regulation says that if you have, let's see, more than 16 cubic yards, you need a permit. Okay, so then what's required in the permit? And your application says that a plan that's appropriate. That plan is not appropriate because it's leaving out a lot of details. If you look at your section 9.4, which is on my page 17, Oak Ridge's site plan of the proposed transfer tank is an existing elevation of 212. Traveling, all right, we already covered that. So it's 1988 information that we're being asked to decide on when that does not reflect the 2026 condition of that property. So we have your regulation. You have the power to regulate this. We have an expert saying that it is it's deficient. Their application is deficient. It needs a containment system around all 4 tanks to prevent leaks of liquid manure into the environment. It's not there. Okay, so your obligation is, and your power is to protect these people. So we have the potential, and I believe fatal defect of the lack of proof required here. We have no containment systems. If this board was to find that there wasn't a fatal defect, obviously a condition of any action you take would require seeing that approval from the alleged application to DEEP in the Department of Agriculture, which, if they respond to the applicant the way they respond to their FOIs, I don't know when we're going to see this, but I'd ask you to study this, consider it. I would encourage you to check with your town attorney before you decide if they have a fatal defect by their failure to show that this was done. I think that proof needed to be with their application, but it doesn't. So whenever the application was submitted, we're hearing tonight that, oh yeah, we did it there. I think the comment was they're aware of this. I don't know if they're aware of it because there's so many people complaining about it, or if they're aware of it from the applicant. But I thought that was a vague, inadequate representation. This is a very serious health risk to these downgraded people. I think the odor is a health problem. I think the flies that land on the roads in summers along this brown trail is a health problem. I think you have the power, and I think your groundwater protection says this section is intended to protect the groundwater quality in order to ensure adequate supply of drinking water. So we had the problem up at the prison with that contamination, and we had city water. And then this road at Highland Heights, there was EDV in the water, and that's why they have sewer. But now we have this section that's funneled to all these people who depend on their well. So we brought these issues up before the Conservation Commission, and they correctly advised the public that that's not our venue. We can't protect you against that. Just keep it to wetlands issues. It was brought up before the CBA, and they correctly advised the public that that's not their lane. But this is your lane because your regulation allows you to protect the groundwater. So we need some assurance. I mean, is Oak Ridge prepared to wellhead wells that test too high for nitrates. We have an obligation to protect our people. I'm totally disappointed with the sort of cavalier, we just come and we dump on you, because this is not North Ellington. This is Summers. We're independent. We have our own regulations, and we need protection from what's happening that shouldn't be happening. And we certainly need to put conditions on this unmanned operation. I need to understand how we can allow these storage tanks without those protections. Thank you.
I'm sure we're going to have more comments.
I know we will have more comments. There was a lot there that I feel like it would be helpful for me to provide some follow-up information before we get to additional comments. I know in the last application you did allow immediate response. I would like to address a few things. All right. First, and there's a number of things. First, I want to talk about this fatal flaw. I did represent that, and I told you exactly who we provided the notice to. I will tell you that notice was sent via email with a copy of the application, and that's what the regulations require, is a copy of the plans, not an application to DEEP and to Department of Ag. The email went mid-May. I'd have to double check my notes. It did not go the exact same day we submitted. However, that is not a fatal defect, and I expect that your town attorney can confirm this. This notification to DEEP and Department of Agriculture is akin to a personal notice requirement. It's a requirement to make sure they know about it, right, prior to the hearing, which clearly they did, because we've got email correspondence acknowledging the receipt of our application, copy of our application. And it's akin to a personal notice requirement where only DEEP and Department of Ag can raise it as a defect, saying we didn't get notice and we don't have an opportunity to comment. You deprived us of that opportunity. It's not a fatal defect that prevents you from acting and going forward. They have notice. I can provide the email confirmation that they responded to saying we have received this, and it will show specifically when they received that notice, and it was well in advance of today's public hearing date. Again, I don't expect any response and comment from them because they both know and are involved in very frequent conversations with my client as to operations, and they're aware that this is what's happening on Hurlburt. So I do not believe there's any fatal flaw or defect. They have been notified. They might not have been notified immediately when it was presented to the commission, but they have been notified. In addition, there's some question as to why the A2 is only with regard to the area of where these 4 transfer tanks will be. Well, that's because that's what's in front of you with this application. We are not here asking for the ability and right to fertilize the fields in general with manure, whether that be liquid or whether that be solid. This manure on steroids really is a false representation as to what this is. It's the byproduct of solid manure after it's gone through the anaerobic digester. The gas has been removed and the solids have been removed. It is being applied, as we have explained, at the same nutrient ratio that it was previously applied. It's very strictly controlled by our nutrient management plan, which is overseen by the state. So we are not doing an A2 of the entire property because the grades on the entire property, the culverts surrounding the property, that really doesn't matter. There is going to be manure spread on this site like there has been for the last 50 plus years. Okay? We are talking about the location of where these transfer tanks are going to be. That's why there's an A2 there. That's why the grading in that area was shown to you by Jay Ursery. And that's why we have provided for any spills in that area to be contained within that area, not be directed and go off-site onto the road, to be contained, managed in that area. In addition, any issues, and and allegations of horrible odor and flies attributed to the manure spreading, right to farm, folks, okay? There's a statute that protects the right to farm, and issues having to do with odor and such, as long as they're following generally accepted agricultural practices, there's no claim to be made that that is a nuisance. With regard, people might say it's a nuisance, but there's no legal remedy for that. With regard to the Steve Trinkus letter that's in this packet, that was prepared in connection with this different property, not this property. So this letter doesn't address this application. I will acknowledge that he raises a question or a few questions having to do with more information having to do with the tanks. How is it pumped in and out? Why? He questions why. He doesn't say there shall be, but why isn't there a containment system around all 4 tanks to prevent leaking? He questioned those things. He doesn't say there has to be. The reason there isn't is because there's no regulation that requires there to be by the state, okay? Or in your regulations. All we have to do is demonstrate to you, pursuant to your special permit criteria, that we are taking reasonable measures to protect in the area of those tanks. We have taken those measures. The tanks, as we already explained, are 1/4-inch steel. They're going to be inspected on a weekly basis. Their fittings will be inspected. Their hoses will be inspected. There is a significant size grading depression there to contain any spill that, actually a complete spill that could come out of one of the tanks. So we believe we have addressed that, and we don't believe that the Steve Trinkus letter is expert testimony with regard to this application whatsoever. The discussions with regards to dangers of nitrate contamination on wells in the area, again, that's getting way beyond the scope of this application and into the issue of general manure fertilization on the fields, right? That's not what we're here for. We were directed to come for a special permit for storage of manure, and the storage specifically being in those 4 transfer tanks. That's the area we're looking at, not site-wide. I will reserve any, obviously, other comment till after the conclusion. I thought there was a lot of information that was just presented to you there, a lot of which is well beyond the scope of this application. One last thing. There's a question as to whether we have even state approval to be doing what we're doing here. The CAFO permit speaks to where the animals are. The nutrient management plan, which is part of the CAFO permit, speaks to where the animal waste will be and how it will be spread. And that nutrient management plan is what addresses the Summers property. It's part of the CAFO permit, but the CAFO permit itself is primarily with regard to where the animals are housed in Ellington. Okay, so we have all approvals that we need from the state, and we are constantly working with the state and in dialogue with the state as to how our practices are. And I will assure you, there is so much more regulation on my clients and their handling of manure than any other farms because they have animals associated with it. If it was a tobacco farm, if it was a nursery or a tree farm, there wouldn't be nearly this type of oversight and permitting required by Department of Ag or DEEP. It's because it's all under our CAFO permit, and we have to manage the waste from that, from the animal byproduct. So that's what's heavily regulated. We have not been notified of any non-compliance issues, and we again are in regular communication with Department of Ag and DEEP with regard to compliance with that plan. I will reserve any other
have
comments.
one quick question.
Yes.
Before you leave. Why 4 tanks? If they're only holding and not storing, why do we need 4 tanks?
4 tanks so we don't have to have much more traffic. I mean, these are going to be filled and emptied throughout the course of the day. And if we had fewer tanks, we would just have to be filling them that much more. So, do you want to respond to that, or does that adequately cover it?
Say it would be a lasted 12-hour period, so we don't have to fertilize throughout the night. It stores. It's enough storage for a 12-hour period.
Okay. Thank you.
Attorney Reiser, one question. Did you submit for the record the notices, email confirmation regarding DEEP and DOAC?
I will. I have
emails in my file, and I will dig through and get them and give them to you by the end of the night, or I can email them over tomorrow.
Thank you.
Yes.
For the record, J.R. Street, J.R. Russo, if I could just make one comment, so we don't have any more confusion about the survey Mr. Parks was implying. I think that the information shown on here came from 1988, which is certainly not true. The information on here is based vertically on a 1988 data, and that's what's required in your zoning regulations. I think if you look, you'd see it in terms of vertical definition and contours, and that's what it's based on. The survey was done in 2026, just a few months back, based on a vertical datum of NAVD 1988, which was put on by the state and federal government at that point in time. So I can assure you the information that's shown on here is current and accurate, and it's not information that came from 1988. How about the contours? Contours were done on 1988 data in 2026.
Thank you.
Which is what your town GIS is also on.
Right. All right. Anyone else for comment? Just sign your name on the sheet and state it for the record. Just make sure you're pretty close to the microphone so folks can hear you in the gallery.
My name is Catherine Mashak. I live at 54 Springfield Road. I've lived in town in December 16th. It'll be 58 years. This is a farm community, always has been. That's what attracted my family to move to this community. I want to continue to see farming done. I'm very pleased that the developmental rights were bought for many acres that can only remain as farm, and there's been a lot of land trust property. Our town has been great at doing that, ensuring that we maintain the character of the town. Generally, how manure, number one, chemical fertilizers destroy the soil. They aren't really good for the plants. So that's, people, that's just bad. Manure is a natural product. With the digestate, the bad stuff is removed. They're spreading it. They used to just spread tons and tons of raw manure. Well, it had been aged for a year. Spread it on the property. I live on, there's a land trust behind me, 38 acres. This is the practice they did every spring. They spread bucket loads, truckloads of manure, and then spread it around and rototilled it in. Yes, it smelled. And there was several years ago, Turf Farm put a bunch of manure out in May, and we had flies that summer like you would believe. So this, I think, is an upgrade to past practices in that they are using a digestate that has removed the methane. Then they are adding it to the irrigation system, which is done low to the ground. They're not spraying the old irrigation systems where everything was sprayed. That's not what's happening here. I talked to somebody who lives on Fort Bridges Road across from this, and she said there was no smell and there were no flies. I feel that this is a much safer way of using manure. This is part of the life cycle of farming, and that it is much healthier for the soil and for the plants, and that we are feeding our cows. So For me, I think that this is a positive thing. I understand there's some concern about the storage tanks. They're on wheels. I saw a picture. But we have to think about better methods of farming, and I think this is an improvement over the old method. There was a remark made about cancer clusters. When I moved into this town in 1968, there were cancer clusters down in Somersville. That's why they have city water, and that was due to farming practices using chemicals. And there have been chemicals used in this town for many, many years. Tobacco and potato farms ask for a lot of fungicide, and that's been a problem. So, we need to update things. This isn't just. I just don't want to see this town say no more farming, because this is a farm community. This is our history. This is still what's going on, and it's more than raising a few horses. Thank you.
Thank you.
And if anybody's angry at me, you're entitled.
Please.
Here's my guys. Larry Joyce. I moved into this town in probably the mid-70s.
Just state your name, sir.
George Van Tassel, 15 Blue Ridge Drive, Summers, Connecticut. We close to 2 fields of digestate that's being spread in. I moved to this town probably 1976. Within a few years, I was involved with the town government. I was on the Conservation Commission, on the WPCA, and also served on the Prison Liaison Committee. I've also been a member of an organization promoting agriculture before town fair. I served under both political parties. The directives were the same. Do what's best for the town and stay within the law. I'm against storing, broadcasting, and digesting within our borders due to the impact that it can have on our water source. Just research what's going on in Idaho now. I know these not happening here. This could happen in 20 years. Digestate is new to this area. What's going to happen 20 years down the road? Deep Overage notified the town of the product change. They start using digestate approximately 4 years ago. Before that, it was manure. It's a whole different product, a whole different permitting process. We already have 2 areas in town serviced with water mains because of PCE and the Somersville section with the fertilization, the spreading. Now that I hit the Rye Hill Circle area, when that went through, when I was on WPCA, the state has put an air stripper up there with a well running constantly, and they said it's going to run for 40 or 50 years. That well that they're using is drawing that PCE back towards the prison. The well that they're using now, they just started using, I'm thinking 4 years ago, no, last year they started using that well. There's no telling if that well is counteracting the well running at the prison. Is that PCE being drawn back that way, going to pollute other areas or not? Now, one last week, does the right to kill include the right to pollute? I don't think so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi guys.
Look,
Mark Wilson, 73 Highland View Drive. I'm here to oppose the application. I live across from Hurlburt. It's in my front yard. I've watched the progress that these guys have made over this past couple of years, taking out trees and changing the ecosystem. You have a lot less wildlife now in the area. Less deer, less coyote. They've really changed the landscape there with what they've done. As far
as the smell goes, that's the one thing that I am most worried about. It is a nuisance. It's a nuisance every time they spread. It's 2 or 3 times a year, and it's bad. It can last a day, it can last a week, depending on the weather. And that smell precludes you from going outdoors at your house on Highland View Drive. It's a nuisance also at Sonny's place when the wind's blowing the right way. The wind always blows the right way down that valley. It's a nuisance at the grammar school when the wind blows the right way. My wife's a substitute teacher down there almost every day, and it stinks to high heaven. My concern is very specific, and that is if we have a storage tank there that's being filled, refilled, emptied every single day, multiple times a day, we've seen the spillage problems that these guys have had with their trucks. They're going to have spillage problems at that site. And that site is tucked right up next to Highland View Drive. There's houses right there. They're going to spill stuff every day. There's no question about it. We see it. And that spill isn't going to be 1 or 2 weeks a year. It's going to be persistent. God forbid they have the big spill that they're warning us against that may happen into a storage container. Who knows how long they'll reside there? You know, what's the recovery from that? The home values will go through the floor in that area, and there are health concerns. People are going to choke on it. I choke on it when I go out in the yard. It's disgusting. It has a very, very strong odor. That's my point.
Thank you. If you have a comment, just come on up.
Is it possible to take a short break so some of the folks here could look at the diagrams that you've been presenting? Because maybe there are questions that will come out of some of the information that we don't see back here.
You want to take a short recess? 5 minutes? Yeah.
We'll take a 5-minute recess.
Can more people still come up?
Yeah.
When we come back in, because people are going to come up, look at the maps, they're going to be moving around and talking. We're not going to be able to hear you because they're going to be looking at maps.
Okay,
so we're going to take 5 minutes. They're going to look at the maps, then we'll reconvene.
How are you doing? I'm still at home. Yeah. 21, 23, 25. Crazy, right? Dominic had Kate Mark golfing. Mike's at home. Anyways, just, trying to find working in O'Reilly's. You come here is annoying, like, it's just like, I don't really hear it. I hear it. It just drives me crazy. But yeah, he's the one outlier with there's always one. There's always one, yeah. And our dog, Arlo, our Bernie's mountain dog, that's just I never forget when we had a song one. Yeah. And when I saw this dog, we found it later. But That's just such a big part of and those 12 she's I'm like, it's retired a few years ago, but I'm just so weird.
When insurance really, you know, it's like charging. So
I actually went to school so much better, then I got to really forward. So now it's like I'm going back. It's like, so magical because it rained for so many days before, and then that day the sun came out and the warmth and Yes, for sure. He had his graduation. Down in the 190 area, and I just remember Enzo when the flu and all of the and that's what Enzo was. So I'll get
Smith, I want to take a seat.
I don't really know. I got my son. They introduced me to the Jacob it's fire person. You know what I mean? It was how you get teachers I want to get in 5 minutes.
All right, we're reconvening the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for June 11th.
Members of the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Just pull that mic a little closer and just state your name. So, is the green light on?
Yeah. I'm going to state my name, but I wanted to have a greeting.
Oh, thank you.
Good evening, Chairman and members of the Planning and Zoning Commission and all those present. My name is Jill Conklin. I live at 3 School Street, but I also have a property right near this application up on Hall Hill Road. After reviewing this application, and also I was here for the Conservation Commission, I'm opposed to the special use permit. I want to start off with a question about the signage. When the Conservation Commission
had their public hearing, there were signs all over the place around the property. There's not one sign around this property. I think the turnout tonight is very low based on who showed up for the conservation public hearing. So I'm going to start by saying I hope this public hearing remains open and signs get posted so people know what's happening. I even looked at the Facebook forum today. There was very little on there about this. I don't think people know. I drove down Fort Bridges Road. Well, the new house is already across from this. Those people were out playing. Their kids are riding bikes. They're enjoying the night in their pools. And I'm like, why aren't they at the meeting? Just a little bizarre. So this proposal would introduce 4 open tanks, each with a capacity, I'm told, about 80,000 gallons. 20 for each. Last time we were here, it was three tanks with 80,000 gallons each, I thought. So anyways, it's liquid digestate, transported from a commercial dairy operation in another town. In total, this represents a very large volume of liquid material being stored near residential properties, private wells, wetlands, and groundwater resources. I've also read from AI that this is the largest dairy farm in Connecticut. I don't know if that's true, but it's pretty big. I drive by it twice a day, every day, Monday through Friday. I have a lot of things I could say personally. My concern is not with agriculture itself. My concern is whether this is appropriate at this location, whether the potential risk has been adequately addressed. Most residents in Summers, like this area, rely on private wells for drinking water. Unlike public water systems, private wells are not continuously monitored, and homeowners bear the responsibility and cost of testing, treatment, and potential well replacement if a contamination occurs. If a replacement is an option, if the aquifer is polluted, that would not be an option. Here in Summers, we like clean drinking water and fresh air, which we do enjoy. I'm also concerned about transportation of this material through our community. This operation will require regular truck deliveries of liquid digestate from one town to another, trucking accidents, hose failures during unloading, equipment failures, accidental releases are recognized risks associated with transporting large volumes of liquid waste. Do the drivers that drive these massive trucks, the big tankers, have CDL licenses? Are they trained for hazmat? Do they have a certification? If you drive an oil truck, you have to have a hazmat certification. You have to have a CDL license. There's kids playing on these streets. There's bicycles. It's very dangerous. And it's just going to be a regular daily occurrence, I fear. So the CDL is a commercial driver's license, if somebody doesn't know that. The people in Summers have a lot of experience with Oak Ridge Dairy, their existing operation in Ellington, including trucks transporting the liquid manure through our community for field application. Residents have lived with the odor, the impact of the transport, seasonal spreading. With this application, the odor won't be occasional. It's going to be a part of our life. This is a real experience, and it raises legitimate concerns about allowing this type of activity into a residential area with private wells, and also very close to a wetlands. There's a little pond right there. It's full of water. I would walk by it the other day. In fact, the key question for the commission is not only whether this facility operates operates as designed, but what happens when things do not go well? When things do not go well. What protections are in place during equipment failure, severe storms, human error, emergency situations, and how quickly can a release be contained before it impacts the wetlands? There's a Buckeye oil terminal down in Weathersfield. Some of you may know it from the old Hess terminal. When you drive up to load a truck to get heating oil there, there's a huge sign that says spills happen. If not, if when. It's huge. Just to, these guys that are driving these oil tankers have hazmat experience. Will there be a berm around these tanks? Are the tanks double-lined? Is there a retention area to contain the gestate, which would have a impervious liner so it wouldn't leak beyond that? I would like to know, what is the emergency response plan for transportation-related spills? Who is responsible for cleanup, the cost of a spill? How quickly can a spill be contained before it reaches stormwater systems, wetlands, or groundwater? What financial assurance is in place to protect neighboring property owners and taxpayers if contamination does occur? Will the applicant be bonded? Can you put a price on clean water? I'll answer that. No. Will you incorporate a baseline, ongoing testing of nearby private wells to be conducted, and who's going to pay for those? I'm also concerned about the odor. There are 3 large open tanks, or 4 large open tanks now. Say 4. Residents should be able to enjoy their homes, their yard, their outdoors living space without persistent odor from imported manure and digestate. This area in Ellington, where their Oak Ridge is located, it's referred to by many people as Smellington. I don't know if anyone's heard that. This neighborhood is primarily residential. The purpose to introduce this large-scale liquid waste storage operation into an area that depends on private wells, has no existing industrial or similar facility in the area. They're all, it's not a huge area of residentials, but groundwater moves around underground too. It's not just what you see on top. I do believe the applicant has adequately demonstrated that the risk to groundwater, I do believe the applicant has not adequately demonstrated that the risk to groundwater, wetlands, quality of life, neighboring properties have been significantly addressed. For these reasons, I do not believe this application has met the burden to demonstrate that the public health, safety, and welfare of the residents in Somers will be protected. I would recommend that every home within a 5-mile radius of these storage units be checked for nitrates and have a baseline test to see what level those wells are at before anything like this could go in. Because, I do know that there were 2 other instances in town. We had I think it was the dry cleaning from the prison, which created a problem up on the Rye Hill Circle area, and city water had to be brought in. And not that long ago, there was a problem with the mink farm that was here years ago up by Watchog Road that contaminated quite a few wells, and I think those people still get bottled water. I also was on the zoning board for many years. And during my time there, we did address manure. There was a lot of talk, I can't remember what year it was, but that's when they set the regulations where manure had to be stored like 100 feet off the property. And you could only have so much of it. I mean, my neighbor used to put it in have a dumpster haul it away every week. So it's kind of a problem that people that have the animals and have the manure, it doesn't really bother them as much, but the people that don't are forced to live with it. And, you know, if you have bad water, if your well water is bad.
Who you up and having they feed them with the sharks.
Sorry. My background is real estate. I've been a real estate broker for over 40 years. And this will affect property values, even if the wells don't go bad. Nobody's going to want to live near it. I can assure you of that. And these homeowners have beautiful homes in that area. It's really sad to even see this here. Let's see. So I asked that the commission deny this application. In my view, this is not suitable for this type of high-volume liquid manure storage and transfer operation, given the surrounding residential properties that we have private wells, and there's wetlands, groundwater resources. Summers will be safe. I can't see how we're going to be protected. They can give you all the assurance in the world, but I don't see it. Accidents happen. They do all the time, especially when you have people driving trucks that probably do not have CDLs. They're old trucks, too. I don't know how quick they can stop with all that liquid in them. They're going to be, I don't know what path they're going to take. If they're going to come up School Street, Maple to School Street, up Hall Hill and over, or they're going to come down 83. So if the commission determines that this is appropriate at this location, what specific findings support that conclusion in terms of neighborhood compatibility and environmental safety and the wellness to the people of Summers? Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
Good evening. David Moser with Oak Ridge Dairy. I had a neighbor approach me during the recess and asked me just to explain it, so I know that most of you on the commission have heard this before, but I'm going to explain it for those that are new to the room. So Oak Ridge is a dairy farm. We grow corn. Every year we grow corn in this field. Manure is going to come whether this is approved or not. That's part of growing corn. We need to get the nutrients on the field. We have proposed this plan because we think it's the best option. So just how it works, trucks are going to bring manure from Oak Ridge to the field in Summers, which is permitted with our nutrient management plan. Our nutrient management plan is a document that gets updated annually and prescribes how much nutrients we need on a corn crop. So that's how we know how much manure to put on the field. Our fields are mapped, they're soil sampled, people walk them, so we know what we're doing. There's setbacks for certain things, that's all on our nutrient management plan. So when we bring it with this system, we'll bring one truck, it'll bring loads during business hours, say 7 o'clock to 5 o'clock. The truck will dump in these tanks, the tanks will fill up during the daytime period, and then they'll empty continuously overnight while the rain system is out running on the fields, emptying, spreading manure between the growing crop. This allows the corn to uptake the nutrients while the crop is growing and create incredible yield. Then we harvest that and start the entire process over again. So, long and short, we get a prescription, we bring manure to the field, we fertilize the crop, and that's going to happen whether this system is part of it or not. The manure has to come. It's not that's not part of growing corn is you're fertilizing it, so that's going to have to happen. So does the commission have any questions on the system? I know you guys have heard that, but any questions?
Is there any difference in the amount of truckloads that'll come in based on this system?
No, there's
versus
not.
What's currently going on? I know that's a concern of how many trucks are coming through.
Yeah, so that's a great question. I appreciate that. So truck traffic will not change, it will be spread out. So same amount of trucks, because that's dictated by our nutrient management plan of how much the corn needs. With this system, we'll be able to bring it throughout the week slowly, throughout the growing season, versus while there's no corn or after the corn's off. So right now, it's all front-loaded or rear-loaded. With this system, we'll be able to do it the entire summer, so that will spread out the truck traffic. Same amount of.
So there'll be more days that'll be spread.
Yes.
Versus if it was just raw.
So smell all year instead of twice a year.
Yeah, 5 months.
It's crazy.
Is it possible to direct a question through the chairman to Mr. Mosher?
It's your prerogative.
Okay.
The question is, the properties that you spread this on that are not owned by Oak Ridge, what authority do you have for that?
The properties that are not owned by Oak Ridge, that Oak Ridge rents, they are in our nutrient management plan.
So when you apply and your application listed 4 properties in Ellington, how did Summers get to know that this was going to happen to us?
I don't believe that has anything to do with the
No, in the nutrient management plan, I don't believe that Summers would be notified as to the nutrient management plan. But the nutrient management plan directs all of the areas where the materials, the manure will be spread and used on site for field fertilization. I don't believe that there's a requirement as part of the CAFO permit or the nutrient management plans that the individual towns that you own or lease property in and fertilize fields are notified in any way.
We have to zoning. So
That is correct. So when we apply manure to a field, we record all of that, and that gets submitted to DEEP annually, and that's what's reviewed, and that goes back against how much manure we spread one year depicts the nutrient management plan for the next year. It's all connected.
And I recognize, as Attorney Parks just said, but you have your own zoning. Well, you may have your own zoning, but for all intents and purposes, for 50 years, these fields have been fertilized. Maybe as a potato farm, it's fertilized with something else. But my client's been fertilizing them for 50 years with manure. There's been no regulation. There's no regulation in your zoning requirements that governs fertilizing with manure.
It hasn't always been.
Hold on.
It hasn't always been.
It's
wait.
permitted as of right as part of agriculture. We've had this discussion before. The question now is because it's being temporarily stored in liquid form, is it the same process? That's why we're here. But there's no requirement, there's no zoning requirement that talks about how you fertilize and what kind of permits you need to fertilize agricultural land with manure. And this is only recently, again, come to light because now my client's proposing a more innovative, efficient, sustainable way of spreading manure with not just with the digestive. The digestive's been being brought there since you had the anaerobic digester, but within the last year with this robotic Rain 360. And we still, as I said at the very beginning, believe it's all part of agriculture. The town staff and CDA did not agree with us and said that no, we're going to require a permit for storage of manure. That's why we're here. And that is the very first time zoning has been used in the context of fertilization of farm fields. Come get a permit. So there's been no reason to have to get involved in the zoning process before, and the state permitting program doesn't involve the local towns.
Let me ask you, what would happen if there were no storage tanks? Like, what would the process be? Would it be?
Can I speak to that?
Yeah, sure.
In 2014, we spread chicken manure. We have every right to do that.
I had chicken parts down my driveway when my kids were riding their bikes. Chicken beaks, chicken legs.
We have every right to
I had crows bathing in the back brook that leads to the stand.
Sir, I'm going to ask you to stop, and you'll have your opportunity to talk.
What about the human pellets?
I'm just asking a question. I'm trying to get an answer for
The
you.
human waste pellets that were there. We have every right
Chairman
to
doesn't
do
want to
it.
listen to you, Mr. Chair. You might want to consider asking him to leave if he doesn't halt.
We have every right to put fertilizer on per nutrient needs based off the Department of Agriculture, and that's what we do.
Right now, I'm just saying, what would the process look like if the 4 tanks weren't approved?
So I can tell you that. So the process, if the 4 tanks are not approved, we bring 1 tank to the field. It's a mobile storage unit. We've been doing this for the past quite a few years. Lots of trucks come every day. They fill that tank. We spread on the fields during the day. Same amount of gallons, like I mentioned, just all before the crop comes out of the ground or just after it comes out of the ground.
But there's still a mobile storage unit where the nitrate's being transferred through, which really isn't all that different than what we're proposing right now.
Do you have any documentation from the state as far as the nutrient management plan of the Department of Ag indicating this is a more efficient way of spreading manure versus the lump sum amounts you just referenced?
Yes, we did get a Climate Smart grant for this project through the Department of Agriculture, so it's an approved practice for a Climate Smart grant for new technology. So we do have documentation that it is a more practice, or a more Climate Smart practice, and that's why we got money from the state for it.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
No, I kind of interrupted you, but I wanted to.
No.
So, and again, I know this is an opportunity for public comment, but there was a specific question directed to Mr. Moser regarding how this operates. We thought there could be some information that more than just that one party needed, so that's why we offered it. But we will turn it back over to the floor.
Come on up.
Can the public ask a question of the dairy? Is this a permit for...
If you're going to speak, you have to come up and state your name for the record.
You have to address the commission.
Okay. But the question is to these gentlemen.
Just state your name
put it
for
to
the
the chair.
Yeah.
My name is Jeff Allison. I have property on Highland View and also on Hall Hill. And I look out my back door all through that proposed area. The question is, are these tanks that are there right now, or is there a holding pond?
There's no holding.
There's no holding pond. There's tanks there. Now, there were 3 tanks previously, and now we're doing 4, or was there 4 last year?
We're just moving them back 50 feet up there.
Right, yeah, I see. You got them all now organized instead of lengthwise. But wasn't there an original permit or request to put a holding pond off of 4 bridges?
There was a previous application that has nothing, that's not this application. There was a previous application that was made to dig an irrigation pond that was going to have liquid digestate in it as well as water. That did not go forward. That is not this application.
So this application is solely for 4 tanks that will hold manure, liquid manure, and then squirt it out at night.
Squirt it out during the day and through the night, correct?
And how long does this go on? During the growing season. And how long is the growing season? From when we plant the corn in June to when we harvest it in September. So it'll be all summer long. Okay. That's my question.
Thank you, sir.
My name is Emily Coolis. I live on Georgewood Road, and my property abuts the property where these
Can you just come a little closer to the microphone, please?
Yes. I live on Georgewood Road, and my question is, you're talking about how much more efficient they're getting with the process of supplying the manure, and I just wonder, is there a limit to how much manure we need on our properties? I just wonder if this thing is just, the proportions seem to be getting out of hand or something, and it's affecting the environment and people in the community. And I guess that's my biggest question. Is there a limit to how much this is going to take place? Because the trucks go by, I live on Georgewood Road, and the trucks go by at a good pace, I think more than 30 miles an hour down the hill, and it's like, I would say maybe every hour there's another truck going by, and that continues, it just seems like it's happening. Is this what we're in store for? Is this what we're going to approve, this type of situation, environment? I appreciate the farming. I mean, I know I drink milk. I'm a milk drinker from day one, and I know cows have to get fed and they have to do their duty, but there just seems to be like I just wouldn't want to see it get out of hand, something that we can't tolerate. That's just my point. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there. My name is Bob Teasing. I live at 12 High Meadows Crossing in Summers. I used to live in Snellington for 21 years, so I can appreciate the odor problems. I'd like to say that the commission here should do what is best and safe for the Summers residents. I'll be brief, I'll be blunt, and then I'll be gone. I think the first thing that really comes to light is the fact that you need deep authorization or the Department of Agriculture authorization to spread this digestate. And there's a question whether or not they have permission to spread it in Summers. And I've not seen any authorization from DEEP or from the Department of Agriculture authorizing this spreading of digestate in Summers. The second thing is containment. We talked about the last time Attorney Sitka was here, he referred to fuel tanks and how fuel tanks need to have containment systems. Not only that, but fuel tanks have to have double-sided walls to make sure that if there's a leak in the fuel, that it won't leak out and there'll be a notification regarding fuel tanks. I think that we could use something like that for containment here. Also, they were talking about containment of the digestate in the event that it leaks out of the 4 storage tanks. And they said, well, what we'll do is we'll put a swale around them, and that if it leaks, it will go into the swale, and then it'll be spread, not as well as by the Rain 360 machines, but it'll be in the ground. So I would say, if you're going to have storage tanks, then you need a containment system. Another question too, on the Rain 360, this thing operates at night, and now it operates with a big hose. What happens if that hose leaks? Is there some kind of notification to the if it's operating by itself, then how are you going to know that there's a leak? And they talked about planning and zoning is responsible to protect the Summers residents, and it is a very serious health issue if we do have these nitrates being released into the aquifer and the groundwater system. We talked about odor, and people talked about odor being a nuisance. Well, I come from the aviation world, and in the aviation world, when it was first starting out, they talked about noise pollution from aircraft. And they've developed systems to reduce the noise that's coming from the engines, and because they no longer have propellers. So there's a way to monitor or control the noise. I believe that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lori Coombe. I'm at 27 High Meadows Crossing. And you were asking, sir, I'm sorry, about the number of trucks. And I think I need clarification because I've only lived here for 3 years, but my neighbors have told me that in the past, the solid manure went on the fields in the spring and at the end of the growing season. So I think that would just be twice. So I don't know how you can get the same amount of trucks from twice a season to 5 days, 6 days a week. Not because it wouldn't be going on Sunday, so 6 days a week, all day. So I don't understand how that's the same number of trucks. That's a lot. And they also said between 1,300 and 1,400 truckloads. That was at one of the other meetings. So that's a big impact, in my opinion. And a lot of trucks on the road. Somebody has said a lot of kids in the neighborhood. No one expects you to not. No one expects them to not fertilize their fields. That's ridiculous. We agree that they should be able to fertilize their fields, but when their attorney says that's what they've been doing, we've been doing the same thing for 50 years. It's not. It's misleading because now it's going to be different, quite a bit different, and it's going to have a much bigger impact on the town.
Thank you.
Listening.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I want to add something.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. I'm going to be loud.
I wanted to add one more thing here. In reference to the trucks, those are farm trucks, so they're not registered. I'm not asking them, but are they registered vehicles? What happens if there's an accident? I mean, what kind of insurance do they have on them? Like, we don't carry insurance. We have appropriate licenses for the vehicles we drive. If you have a motorcycle, you get a motorcycle license. If you drive a big tanker, you have a CDL. So do they have CDLs?
Do you have a reason to believe they don't?
Pardon me?
Do you have a reason to believe they don't?
Well, I know it's farm equipment, so I don't know. I don't know if they do. That's my question. I'd like to know.
Jim, I don't think that that's under the purview of the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Well, the trucks are going to be coming from Ellington through our back small roads all the way up here during the summer. But it is about trucks.
No, this is only about the storage tanks.
Yeah, okay, so they're going to put storage and not put anything in them? There's going to be...
They're allowed, that is not any, the planning and zoning
Well, I'm raising the issue anyways, and I didn't imply, I said I'm okay with agriculture. I didn't imply that I wasn't okay with agriculture and farming. I mean, I like to farm myself too. I do buy manure for my farm. I go get it at Agway, right? But this is totally different. This is storage. This is different. This is different. Accidents happen. They will. Something will happen. Well waters will get contaminated. Nitrates are very hard to get out of the water. Very hard. Very expensive systems. So I hope they have a huge bond.
Anyone else?
Frank Orton, everybody hear me?
Yep.
160 Watchog Road. I've been in the town since 1955. I go up and down the road all the time. Farmers started farming spreading manure, regular manure, okay? And I noticed the lawyer over here for these boys, at her convenience, uses the term manure instead of digestive liquid fertilizer. Okay? We didn't have that back in them days. I've seen the farmers go up and down the fields with the manure spreaders, regular solid manure. Yeah, it smelled a couple of days, but they were going up and down the fields again with wheelbarrows, mixing it in. This was part of the daily, what they did. Now, I don't know, I haven't really kept track of who does what for farming, but there was potatoes in them fields, tobacco, corn, and it all grew really nice. Real nice. We didn't have big meetings to see what the new technology was. Okay? It was very simple back in them days. And all the crops grew really good. The nitrates that they're talking about, there are still wells in Ellington, or I could use the term Smellington. I like Ellington better. They're messed up from nitrates. Sorry. We were in here at a town meeting, and we come here as a group. But what happens if our wells get messed up? We're singular. Who's going to help us? We don't need this new technology in the town of Summers. We don't need to get Summers messed up like Ellington. I myself, I'm a little old-fashioned. I'm 75 years old. Technology is good as long as you can control it. But the nitrates, I agree with John over here. It's a fertilizer on steroids, unlike what she says. Okay? And once they're in the wells, it's a son of a gun to get rid of them. We don't need this in Summers. We don't need tanks. We don't need security to monitor the tanks for vandalism or anything like that. Just don't need it. And the people in back of me don't need it either. Can't speak for them, but they're not here just for giggles. They have very real concerns. Property value, health, cancer, carcinogenics. There's a lot of, you don't need to put more problems in the town. Keep it simple. That's what they used to do in the old days. Didn't have big meetings like this over spreading manure. And notice I'm using the term manure. Okay? They just went about, did their jobs, and that was it. Yeah, it smelled for 3 or 4 days. But that was farming. They have a right to farm. They have a right to spread manure. But this other stuff, I think is very dangerous. Even if it's in a containment, even if it has swales around it, coming in and out of Summers in a liquid form. A solid form is much, much better. Liquid form? No. I don't think it's good. I don't think it's good at all. I think you guys are, if you pass this, or think about I think you're asking for trouble. Think about it long and hard, what it's going to do to the town in the long run. Ellington's messed up. Ellington is messed up. Don't make Summers the same mistake. We don't need it. They want to get rid of the cow manure? Get spreaders. Hire a couple extra guys to drive tractors. This new technology, and there's an interesting point too. The guy that was up there said, if the hose breaks at night, is there anybody going to monitor it? You don't need things running at night. You have supervisors at factories that oversee people at night. Who's going to oversee this machine? You don't need it. It's too dangerous. I think that's about all I got to say. You know, from 1955 on, Summers has been really nice to me. And the town has grown respectfully and healthily. That's a good word to use. And the nitrogen, nitrates is a cancer-causing chemical. Don't need it. Don't need it. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Jim Burrell. I live at 111 Highland View Drive. I've been a resident of Summers for 34 years. I just want to start off, I'm going to be brief, but I want to state that I have nothing against farming. In fact, when I lived on Shaker Road, and we had propane cannons scaring away the crows, and it was a nuisance, but I testified on behalf of the farmers. So don't interpret anything I say as being anti-farming. My only question is, these tanks are filled daily. I don't understand, but it sounds like they need to be emptied daily. In the past, when there was a solid manure, a couple times a year, the smell was unbearable. In the summer, I remember being in 90-degree weather, having to take the dog out for a walk. I had to wear a scarf because it was so bad. But I accepted that because, the farmers have a right to do their farming. And it was only a few days at a time, twice a year, and we lived with it. But if these tanks are being filled daily, I imagine they're going to be emptied daily, and I can't understand how this could be emptied into the field every day. I mean, is this stuff going to other farms or other towns and just being used as a distribution station? I don't know, but just, as a citizen of Summers and a taxpayer, and in views of the discussion of the facts that I've heard from both sides tonight, let the record show that I'm opposed to the approval of this application.
Thanks, Jim. Anyone else?
At the risk of being redundant, I'm really not going to avoid being redundant, I should say. I don't have too much additional to add. I will note, and Dave will help me here, that manure and digestate are interchangeable terms in the agriculture industry. They're really the same thing, and there's no heavier load of nitrate or nitrogen in digestate than there is in manure. I'm going to have David explain that.
So, like I said before, our nutrient management plan prescribes nutrients to our corn crop. We don't care which form of manure that's in. It needs the same amount of nutrients. So we would haul more of a certain type of manure if it had less nutrients. That's prescribed. It's a prescription. That's probably the best way to say it. So the liquid manure, we have it tested. They prescribe how much nutrients we need to grow corn crop, and that's what we bring to the field. If it was solid manure, it would be a different rate per acre than if it's liquid manure. So it's all on nutrients. It has nothing to do with the form of manure. The manure is tested. nutrients are, lab nutrients, and then it's depicted on what the corn crop needs.
So we are putting the same amount of nutrients into the field over the course of the season when we use the digestate as we would if we were using solid manure. There's not more nitrates going into the soils for the crop production. It's just being metered out in a different manner, as opposed to being front-loaded and having a lot instead of having a lot of solid manure spread at the beginning of the season, we are now metering it out and applying those nutrients through the growing season, which means we don't have to do so much at once. It's spread, it's more efficient, it's more sustainable, it's more, it's probably healthier for the plants to put the nutrients in as they're growing when they really need it, so you get a better crop. Again, as it was said by Mr. Baylor, they got a grant from the state for this equipment because everyone recognizes this is new innovation, it's more sustainable, and we could give you a copy of their climate resilience plan if you need it, but this is the direction that hopefully a lot of farms will aspire to go. But it costs some money. It takes some investment. They were fortunate enough to get a grant, and they're a large producer. They have the ability to incorporate this. But although it's new technology, it's really a lot of the same. Again, the digestate is no different than the liquid, the solid manure. In fact, we've heard a lot of conversation and comments about the odor, and when it becomes digestate after it's gone through the anaerobic digestion, the methanes come out. So the odor is less than it would be with the pure solid manure, correct?
Yeah, let me just describe that process so everyone's on the same page. So a cow poops on the floor in our barn, we clean that up, and we put it in a manure tank. That manure tank then goes to a digester, an anaerobic digester, sits in that digester for 21 days, and we suck the gas. The methane rises to the top. That digester is heated to 100 degrees. The methane rises to the top, and that is extracted and used to power cars and homes. So it becomes a clean natural gas that's burning. So it's sustainability. That's why we do it. That product is then brought back to the farm inside our building, and we separate the solids. The solids are then used for bedding for cows, so that becomes a fibrous material. It's an incredible thing that we can recycle manure into fiber that's clean enough to lay down on. Then the liquid is put in the manure pit and used for fertilization. So to us farmers, manure digestate is the same thing. Digestate is better because it's been heated, so it has less bacteria in it. The bedding is better, and we've captured gas that would have just gone up into the atmosphere. So we're powering people's houses, heating hot water, driving cars with double as a waste product. Then we take that waste product and turn it into fertilizer. One more thing on the tanks. People have said they're open tanks. They have a roof on them, and there's ports at which we fill through the top. So the tank is closed with a roof, and there's just a few ports on the top of the tanks.
What did you use to fertilize the fields last year or this summer?
So this last field specifically that we're talking about, we ran this exact system there last year.
So it was digestate last year?
Yes, it was. So the digester has been running since when?
2021.
2021.
So it's been going on for a few years now there?
Yes, correct.
Well, but the tanks in the Rain 360 for the first time was last year.
Okay.
Prior to that, it was digestate from that anaerobic digester, but it was a different method of application.
And how frequency was that application?
So that's a great question. Like I said, same amount of nutrients that's prescribed in our prescription. The nutrients before we can put on in the spring or in the fall. This rain system has a new technology that allows us to put on while the crop is growing, right at the base of the crop. So absorption is faster, and that takes the nitrogen into the plant, which can grow a better crop. And then it doesn't allow for what's the word I'm looking for?
Runoff?
Volatilization. And
that's a better word.
and so runoff, we put down less per application. That allows it to absorb into the ground faster. So the nutrients are utilized better.
Do we want to follow a little bit on the truck traffic question. I mean, I know that.
Yeah, so that's a
I
good
know we
question.
touched on it, but.
Yeah, so back to the nutrients, corn needs X amount of nutrients, that's prescribed in truckloads for us. So the amount of truckloads that's going to come to grow the corn crop is the same. Whether they come all in the spring, we spring on Watchung Road today, there was a lot of trucks. So lots of loads in one day. With this system, we'll be able to spread that out. So the same amount of trucks are coming, just over a longer period of time. So the truck traffic will be less because it's spread out. Same amount of trucks, but the impact of the traffic will be less.
Same amount of trucks because we have to get the same amount of nutrients, and that's by truckload, right? So we have to get that there over the growing season. It's just now parceled out, slower and steady as opposed to lumps, in the spring.
Both are good practices. I don't want to discredit one and raise one above the other. The one to be able to do it during a growing crop is a new technology, and we consider that the best. That's how we want to move forward into the future in farming. It's not available on every site, so both practices are good. Both practices are safe. This is the best, in our opinion. We wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be coming back time and time again if we didn't think it was the best. For all of it, everyone here.
So, we did hear a lot of, one of the overriding concerns is this groundwater contamination issue. Again, these nutrients are getting into the field one way or another. They're not more just because we're applying the liquid digestate instead of solid manure. Again, they are interchangeable. They are similar product. Yep, please do.
And if it wasn't coming through manure, it'd be synthetic fertilizer. The nutrients need to come to no corn will grow.
So the idea of groundwater contamination, again, we're not talking about the entire field. We're not talking about, this application isn't about application of, zoning application isn't about physical application of manure or digestate or whatever you want to call it over the entire field. We are here specifically to talk about a special permit for storage of manure, and that storage you have deemed to be in these transfer tanks. That's where the focus of this review lies. We've identified the area, we've identified how it will be stored, or what the transfer tanks look like. We identified how they'll be filled and how they'll be metered out through the day and the constant application. We've identified the precautions we've taken in the very unlikely event of a failure, a complete failure of one of the tanks. But again, we've given you enough information about the tanks, I think, to understand that is highly improbable. Okay, which gets me back to the memo I had submitted, which is you have a lot of things to consider. Yes, you have to consider whether this is a permissible activity. Do we comply with the specific regulations having to do with storage of manure? We're 100 feet off the property line and what have you. We're looking for a special exception. Is there any reasonable and probable threat to the health, safety, or welfare of the town? And I haven't heard any reasonably likely. I've heard a lot of speculation. I've heard a lot of scared residents saying, what happens if our groundwater gets contaminated? But that's not from these tanks. That's from the application of digestate throughout the acres and acres and acres of field where we're growing crops. Because, we can't decide based on a what if, an unknown that's got very little probability or likelihood of happening. We have demonstrated how we're safeguarding these tanks to prevent any spills. We've talked about the inspections that will be done. We've talked about the security that we'll have there. There will be 24/7 camera security, so we'll know if there's something going wrong with the tanks. So I don't see any site-specific evidence that there will be some probability more than a speculation of a risk to harm to the environment from this digestate. And I think that's what you have to base your decision on. This is an accepted farming practice. Again, when my client is following generally accepted farming practices, They have a right to farm. And I'm sorry that some people don't like the odors. I'm sorry that some people don't like the trucks that bring the manure or the flies that accompany the manure. But Summers is a farming community. Ellington is not Smellington, and I'm really offended for the people of Ellington to hear you say that. In fact, I'm the town attorney of Ellington, and I think that everybody in town would be outraged to hear almost a dozen of you refer to it as Smellington tonight. Ellington is a beautiful farming community. And does it smell from time to time? Sure. But farms might smell from time to time. Summers is a farming community. You have it in your plan of conservation and development. You are rooted in farming. You were founded on farming. And to take the attitude that we don't tolerate the smells that go along with farming, you guys came here well after these farms were established, and that's what the right to farm is to protect against. So I'll get off my high horse, and I'll just say we think that we've given you an application that has been thoroughly vetted. We think that we have engineered it appropriately. It is discussed and known to all regulatory agencies with the state. But really, that doesn't matter to you. The state's permitting process and licensing process is not what we're here for. So we're confident that the nutrient management plan includes these sites, but it really doesn't matter for purposes of these storage and transfer tanks that we're talking about tonight. So let's get to the heart of the matter. Evaluate those with regard to your regulations. We think that we've checked them off and given you a solid application to now move forward and approve this so my client can get back to implementing it in the fields. Do you have any further questions for me?
I don't as of now. Does anyone else on the commission have any questions? And we're going to leave the meeting open because I think you have some emails you want to get to us.
I did give one to Attorney Slater.
Still have another one, though, don't you?
It's the exact same date, and I can get it to you. I'm not sure you need to leave that hearing open for it, if that's the only outstanding piece of information. It's the exact same date. They were both notified on the same date. I just have a printout of the NCRS one.
The only problem with that is Attorney Parks or others might want to be able to comment on the sufficiency of what the emails say. If you want to avoid, if you think the public has all been heard and all the information that's important, with the exception of seeing this, you could keep the public hearing open, especially if you weren't planning to decide tonight because you had a lot of information to review, for the limited purposes of being able to receive comment related only to the submission of the communications required by the regulation. And that way, others would be able to comment that it is sufficient or not sufficient. Whereas if you close the public hearing right now,
send it to you. Can I email it right now?
Do you have it on your phone?
Yeah. What if I have questions? I've received a lot of material tonight. Obviously, I haven't reviewed it as far as being able to ask questions.
You want to keep the hearing open. If you want to be able to ask the applicant additional information about what's been submitted, that would be another reason you'd want to keep it open. Okay. But if you thought you were ready to close it and the only issue was this one issue, the only problem is emailing it to you right now doesn't necessarily give the public an opportunity to see what it is and comment on it. So it's kind of a last-minute thing for folks to see that. So if you're inclined to think there's a decent chance, even if you don't know for sure, you think there's a decent chance you might have additional questions to ask, if you close the hearing tonight, you won't be able to ask them.
I move we continue the public hearing to the next meeting. We can always get together and close it. But it gives everybody an opportunity to respond to that last document.
Anyone else?
Jen, you have that email in your inbox.
Okay. You want to keep the meeting open, or?
Nope, it's one sentence.
So I'll be honest with you, I'm more concerned about going through this stuff and if I have questions. That's more my concern.
Can I say something? When we came in here before we started, Jennifer was handing out stuff that she was sharing with everybody up there. I mean, we haven't seen that. So there's other information that came in tonight that we haven't seen. I think the public hearing should be open for anyone that wants to speak, and also for these people that they have missing. She'll come.
Do you want to make a motion, Brandon?
I thought it did.
Oh, you did. Is there a second? I'll second.
Brad, you have to state the date and time.
For the next meeting.
Okay, when's our next meeting?
It's the second.
Thank you.
Thursday.
July 9th.
Move we continue the public hearing into July 9th,
Again, at 6 p.m.
again at 6 p.m.
Yeah, regular meeting.
Okay, thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you. Do I have a second, Chris? Any discussion? All in favor? Yep. All in favor? Aye. Old business for table? Minutes? All in favor? All in favor?